Say what you like about the guy, maybe you think he's cheesy, or maybe you think he's really angry, or maybe you think he puts out too much content and spams your feed. He probably does actually. But I will always be grateful for whatever algorithm it was that put his content on my timeline all those years ago. Gary Vee was kind of this gateway into this world of self-development. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the lessons that I've learned from Gary Vee after years of consuming his content and how he essentially changed my life.
I just don't get it. I don't get why people think at 18, 22, 30 that they have to have their life figured out when they live to 90 and 100.
The first lesson I learned from Gary Vee is that he made me realize just how young I am. I first discovered Gary Vee when I was 19 or 20 years old. I was at a point in my life just after university where I had no idea what I wanted to do. That hasn't really changed. I still have no plan. I'm just a little bit older now. I was probably scrolling through YouTube or Googling what I wanted to do with my life. And lo and behold, on the YouTube page, a video comes up titled "What to Do After College." Well played, YouTube algorithm. For those of you who haven't seen this video, it's probably one of Gary Vee's most known videos, and he's kind of outside ranting where he talks about how he's scared that this is the time of year when 22-year-olds, aka those who've just finished university or college, go and get a job and play it safe. And what he's really encouraging you to do is kind of go after what you want. After consuming Gary's podcast and all of his content for the next couple of weeks, I slowly realized that there's a common theme in what he says, and that he reminds people just how young you actually are. I think society kind of has us believe that we have to go on this certain path and we have to kind of check off milestones as we go. You know, you're supposed to have this by 25, and then at 30 you're supposed to do that, and then at 40 you're supposed to be in this place. And Gary was basically saying, you're 22, you're 25, you're 28. Go and take some risks, do what you want while you haven't got the baggage and responsibility. His argument is always that you can wake up at 30 and still be young as you know what he would say. Yes, I'm sat here at 26, and don't get me wrong, I'm by no means a child, I'm independent, but in the grand scheme of things, I still consider myself incredibly young, and I still have a lot of time to do what I want to do. This is incredibly important if you're in your 20s, because we also struggle with patience. Which brings me on to the second lesson that I learned from Gary.
The disproportionate reason that most people in this room will not win is actually not the hard work, which is what I'm going to talk about probably for the next 45 minutes. It's your lack of patience.
That in order to achieve anything, and all the people that you know who've achieved big things, you can bet on two things. They worked bloody hard, and two, it took them a hell of a long time to become that overnight success that we all see on Instagram. So many of us struggle with this in our 20s because I think we want to prove people wrong, whether it's our parents, friends, people you didn't like in school. We want to prove people wrong and say, look, I did it young, blah, 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 blah. But what I've learned from Gary Vee is that in order to achieve really, really big things, we need to start thinking in 5, 10, 15-year intervals, because that's where the real magic happens. A funny story with this is that my brother and I are music producers, and our project is called Jac and Harri. And if you go to our Spotify profile, you'll notice that our first single is called Patience. And we did that because we wanted to constantly remind ourselves that we're in this music thing for the long game. Don't go and listen to that song, it's absolutely terrible, I wouldn't recommend it to you. But it's funny looking back and thinking how much of an impact Gary Vee had on us back all those years ago, I think in 2017.
When I was 22 to 28, I was making $35,000 to $55,000 a year, but I had no expenses. I didn't go on vacations. I didn't buy fancy things. So I saved my money. I saved my money. I still not bought a home. I was still in an apartment because I was saving cash to go on the offense.
The third thing that I've taken away from Gary Vee over the years is to avoid lifestyle inflation and live well below my means. Now, I will preface this by saying I do think there's a balance. Ultimately, I think you should just do whatever you want that makes you happy and what aligns to your goals. However, I do think if you want to go on the offense in life and go after your goals, maybe start businesses, start ventures, I do think it's a very good decision to save money and avoid increasing the cost of your lifestyle. Keeping up the Joneses, as we know it, is probably not the wisest idea because no one really wins. It's a never-ending game. There's always a nicer car, there's always a nicer watch. You never really are satisfied with where you're at. Gary's main argument for this is that people end up locking themselves into a situation, aka a job or a business, that they don't like, but they cannot leave because that business or that job gives them the money that they need to fund this lifestyle that they don't even like, but it impresses other people. This made complete sense to me as I'd seen it happen as I grew up, and I decided that I was adamant I didn't want that to be me and I wanted options in life. And an easy way for me to have options is to spend far less money than I actually make. To begin with, in my early 20s, I took this to the absolute extreme, and I used to begrudge myself for buying coffee or buying lunch or anything that seemed quite frivolous at the time. I'm less strict with it now as, one, I earn more money than I did when I was 20 or 21, and two, I've learned that you can only save so much before it starts impacting your quality of life. Now I focus more time on developing my skills and investing in myself so that this will allow me to make more money in the future. However, these habits that I learned in my early 20s have still stayed with me. I don't spend money on buying fancy things to try and impress other people. If I do buy something nice, it's because I want it and it makes me happy. I still drive the same car that I did when I was 20 or 21 because I see no point in changing it for a monthly payment. Personal finance and investing is one of the things that I'm really passionate about, so if you are interested in that kind of content, I'd be happy to make some more in the future. Just let me know down in the comments.
Put in the work. I gave up all my weekends and holidays in high school because I knew I had to pay that price.
So the fourth lesson that I've learned from Gary Vee is that work ethic is the variable that you can actually control. You cannot control the situation that you come into the world in, but what you can control is those 16 to 17 hours every single day that you're awake. You can control how you spend your time and what you spend your time doing. So if you have got big dreams and you have got things you want to achieve, Gary's argument is always spend less time watching Netflix and just work. He does take this to the extreme though, and he talks about working 7 p.m. till 2 a.m. I can assure you, if you do that for a long period of time and you work full time in a day job, you'll be burnt out in a couple of weeks. Trust me, I've tried it. I would never have come across people like Tim Ferriss without the Gary Vee podcast. And then this forced me to read the 4-Hour Workweek, which then forced me to read another thing and another thing. And he opened me up to this new world, and I'll always be grateful for that. I don't consume as much of his content anymore, but I'll never unfollow him just for that kind of legacy status. I'll always be grateful. Guys, if you did like this video, I have a playlist here titled Life Lessons that I would highly recommend you check out. I'll see you over there, but thanks very much for watching this one. Look after yourselves. Take care, and I'll see you soon.